I go beyond an intimate partnership when I say this. Healthy relationships really are one of the key factors in overall health, well-being, and longevity. We have so many studies around this. Our ability to form and keep healthy relationships impacts, again, every measurable area of our health and well-being.
Hello and welcome to the Biohack Her podcast. I'm Azra, your host and founder of Biohack Her. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach specializing in longevity for women, a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, and a biohacking advocate. Biohack Her is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through improving our nutrition, exercising, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews with the best longevity experts to help you understand what you can do to optimize your health, prevent disease, and slow down or even reverse the symptoms of aging by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Biohack Her podcast. As some of you might know, I'm not only a podcast host, but also an integrative nutritional health coach. As part of my mission to help women live well longer, I'm excited to share that I have launched my first Biohack Her product, my Good Gut Granola. I created this recipe after navigating my own gut health issues and struggled to find healthy breakfast options that didn't taste like cardboard. My cranberry and walnut granola is gluten-free and vegan, and each ingredient has been specifically chosen because of its science-backed ability to support longevity. And I haven't compromised on taste to achieve a healthy granola. But I apologize in advance because once you start eating, you will become addicted. It's that Moorish. It's now available for my Australian listeners, and you can purchase it online from www.biohack-her.com, where you can also download a free copy of my ebook, Biohack Her, Live Well Longer, a beginner's guide to biohacking for women to optimize your health. Hi everyone, today we're diving into a topic that's often whispered about, but rarely talked about openly, sex myths. And to help us unpack them, I'm joined by the incredible Isiah McKimmie, a renowned relationship counselor, sex therapist, and sexologist who's been helping couples and individuals transform their intimacy and connection for over 15 years. We'll be talking about some of the biggest misconceptions around sex, from desire and libido to what's normal in our long-term relationships and why women's sexual health is deeply tied to their emotional well-being and longevity. So if you've ever wondered why your desire fluctuates, how stress or hormones affect your sex life, or what it really takes to cultivate lasting intimacy, this episode is for you. Let's bust some myths, open some minds, and get real about sex with Isiah McKimmie. I hope you enjoy the show. Isiah, welcome to the Biohack Her podcast. For those who might not know your work, can you share a little bit about what led you to become a relationship counsellor and a sexologist?
Oh, this is a big question to start with, Azra. Thank you. Look, couples therapist and sexologist isn't one of those careers that most kids dream of going into, or that our career counselors advise us that we can go into at school. This was something that I fell into in my 20s. I had never been very confident with sex growing up. I didn't feel confident in relationships either. So really doing this was one of the last things I could ever have imagined myself doing. When I was in my early 20s, I went to a festival, a music festival, and I kind of stumbled into a Tantra workshop. And Tantra, for anyone who hasn't heard of it, is a form of yoga that also has incredible benefits to our relationships and sex life. So Sting will boast that he practices Tantra and can have sex for 9 hours. And longevity is one factor, but the enhanced pleasure and intimacy that we can get out of sex as a result is another one. So I absolutely fell in love with Tantra. It felt like for the first time in my life, I had permission to enjoy sex, to not feel ashamed about the things that I enjoyed. I had a new confidence in myself around it. And I also had tools, really practical tools to have mind-blowing sex, like sex beyond the sex that I had heard other people talk about, the sex that I always thought was possible that I hadn't experienced yet. And I really fell in love with this practice, this spiritual sexual practice. After I had been practicing for a while, I started teaching, and I actually met a psychologist not long after I started teaching who asked if I would work with his male clients who were experiencing sexual dysfunction to teach them the practical things that I had learned through Tantra. And this work absolutely opened my eyes to just how important relationships, intimacy, and sex are to our entire lives. I saw young men that were struggling with confidence, with drugs, with going out and meeting people because they were having sexual challenges. And I saw them be able to overcome that. And I realized that this is a way that I could help people lead healthier and happier lives by helping them with their sex lives. And I very quickly learned that helping them with their relationships was going to go hand in hand with that. So I wanted to learn everything I could. I already had a lot of the practical tools through Tantra and some of the other sexological bodywork studies that I had done. But I went back to university. I did 2 masters and a postgraduate diploma. I studied extra courses in couples therapy, and I ended up becoming a lecturer in couples therapy. And so this has been 15 years now that I have been doing this work, and it still feels like a privilege every single day to help people with this part of their lives.
Well, I think that you got everybody's attention the moment you said the words mind-blowing sex. You've worked with hundreds of couples and women. What's the most common misconception that you see when it comes to sex and intimacy?
Oh, this is such a big one, because I think there are so many myths and misconceptions out there about sex. Our sex education is still generally lacking. Often sex isn't taught about in our households growing up. We don't often even have the words for body parts or for sex or for asking for what we want. Sex education in schools largely focuses on STIs, how not to get pregnant, and the dangers of sex. No one teaches us about pleasure and real intimacy and connection and all of the incredible things that are possible when we're engaging with ourselves or another human being in this really, really amazing realm. So for me, myths and misconceptions range from a belief that men will always have a higher desire than women, a belief or a misconception around how long we should be spending in foreplay or non-penetrative sex, and a whole lot of myths about orgasms as well, including how we have them, this idea that we'll always know if we've had them, and how they should happen. When we're looking at media, we see that orgasms happen simultaneously through penetration sex only, and that just isn't the case for the majority of women. Simultaneous orgasms don't happen for the majority of couples. All of that is really normal, but we just so often don't have realistic ideas around what sex actually looks like, and we can end up feeling ashamed, embarrassed, like something is wrong with us, or really disappointed when it doesn't look like it does in movies or pornography.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I want to do a deep dive into some of those aspects that you've just highlighted. But we often talk about longevity on this show, and I wanted to first cover off sexual well-being and what role that plays in terms of how we can live for longer and also have a great sex life for longer.
So we know that sex has benefits to health. We know that it can reduce risk of heart attack and stroke. We know that it can boost mood. We know that it can help an intimate relationship as well. And we know that overall relationships are incredibly important to every measurable area of our health and well-being. So when we are experiencing challenges with our sex life and with our relationships, that increases our risk of anxiety and depression, as does anxiety and depression increase our risk of having challenges in these areas. They go hand in hand. And so many people will describe having challenges in this area as like having a dark cloud that is following them around everywhere, making everything harder, taking away their motivation, taking up their energy, their time, keeping them awake at night. So the benefits to really working on our health and on our sex life and relationships are incredible for health and well-being.
And so what are some of the things that people can do to improve that?
One of the most important things is education for us, because again, the way that we don't receive education around sex, we often don't get that around relationships either. We expect relationships to just work, or we model what we saw around us. The happily ever after is, when we find the right person, everything will just work. Then we don't need to learn anything. We don't need to put effort into our relationships. But we do. We need to keep working on every relationship that we're in, looking at our own patterns. How do we show up around communication? How do we impact a partner? What can we learn for ourselves? What actions can we take? How do we learn to communicate better? And what might we learn more about sex to have that incredible, mind-blowing, connected sex that can really kind of energize and uplift us?
Do you think the notion of the fairy tale romance does us a disservice?
Completely.
You touched on a little bit there, but it's like, as little girls, we grow up, right, watching all of these fairy tales and these romances and reading books and so on. And we're conditioned to have a certain expectation about a relationship. But your point about the fact that it takes two to tango, right? So we don't tend to look at ourselves and how we contribute to either the improvement or the demise of a relationship.
Absolutely. And I think it is similar to our health. We don't just say, great, I've got a great healthy body. That's it. Now I don't have to take care of it. We have to keep looking at, what can I do to make this better? What actions can I take today that are going to improve my relationship, all of my relationships, my connections, particularly our intimate relationship? What can I do today that's going to benefit that?
Yeah. Let's debunk some common sex myths. I'm going to start with one of the big ones. The myth that libido naturally declines with age and there's nothing that women can do about it. What's the truth?
I love this one. Let's absolutely debunk this, because there is not scientific evidence behind this. What we do see is that in long-term relationships, desire will fluctuate over time, very often for both partners. Very often in heterosexual relationships, the woman in that relationship will have a higher desire than her male partner. And when I see couples like this, there's often a lot of extra shame around this, and it's really hard as a result for them to reach out and seek help around it. So firstly, women can have a higher desire in any relationship. For some women, what they will find is that relationship satisfaction and sexual satisfaction will impact their desire. And if women have been in a relationship where they are carrying the majority of the mental load, the relational load, the emotional load of the entire household, often, that's not going to have them feel sexy. That's not going to have them feel in the mood if they don't feel like they are really equal partners, if they don't feel like they are getting their emotional needs met. And unfortunately for so many women, they also won't be satisfied by the sex that they've had. It has been mediocre. It has been okay. They've engaged in it to please a partner. They might not have discovered all of the ways they can enjoy themselves, all the different kinds of orgasms that they can have. And that can lead to sexual boredom and dissatisfaction that also plays into desire. So we can see a decline in desire for women. And very often women will say, no, I'm just at that age where it's done. Menopause can add extra complications for women around pain, changes in lubrication, changes in their mood that make all of this harder. But there was a really interesting study that showed when women of any age got into a new relationship, their desire would spike again. And I have people in my own world who are in their 60s and 70s who are telling me they are having the best sex of their life. And for many women, they've found that the change of life, no longer having to be worried about what other people think, no longer worried about becoming pregnant. They are at a stage in their life where they're saying, well, this is all about me now. And because I can see it that way, I'm having an amazing time out there.
How liberating for them.
I love when these women come in. Absolutely.
That's so cool. I mean, because a lot of people think that, when you hit 60, 70, that sex stops. But can we continue to have sex for forever? Can we continue to have sex up until our 90s and even to 100?
Well, yes. Yes, we can. And it might change. Our sexual function does change. What we're capable of can change. We know that men will have higher risks of erectile dysfunction as they age. We do know that our sensitivity can decrease. But that doesn't mean we can't engage in this beautiful, often energizing, really healthy act with someone else in ways that are just a little bit different than we did before.
You mentioned that when women are in relationships, and I'm assuming the same thing happens for men as well, that over time that the connectivity between the two or sex tends to be reduced, that they don't have sex as often. Is this a persistent myth that long-term relationships inevitably lose passion? And if so, what can people do to reignite things so that it does feel like you're always in a new relationship, like you mentioned before?
Good question. It's not a myth in so much as the fact that it happens. We see it happen, but we also know that it doesn't need to, and it doesn't happen for every couple. Just like we need to keep taking care of a relationship, there are factors that are common to couples who maintain lasting intimacy, desire, and passion together. Those things include maintaining a strong relationship, making sex a priority, seeing it as a really important part of their lives, making time for it, learning about it, making sure it's enjoyable. Things like making sure that they are enjoying sex, that they're feeling trusting and close and safe when they have sex. That also allows them to add novelty and variety to their sex lives. And what we see, and there's actually a number that has been discovered around this, that 12 acts of sexual novelty per year is the kind of the ideal number, if you like, for most people on average, to keeping that excitement and desire alive. And again, that can take a little bit of effort, talking about fantasies, doing some research, trying some new things, having sex in new or different places. All of that can contribute to a lasting intimacy and desire. So we know that it is possible. We have studied these couples. We've seen that it's possible. And we also know that the opposite is true for many couples.
Many women believe that they need to perform or meet their partner's expectations rather than focusing on their own pleasure. Mm-hmm. How does this mindset affect intimacy and connection?
Hugely. In 2025, it still exists. So many of us have been taught that sex is for a partner's pleasure. We don't want to hurt their feelings by saying something that we don't like. We need to have sex enough to keep them satisfied, but not too much to make them uncomfortable, because we also have words and names that we use to describe women who want or like sex too much. And that keeps us in a really narrow realm of what we feel safe to enjoy. So it does still exist. Often women haven't been taught to explore themselves and explore what they like. So they don't even know how to put that into words to a partner to say, I'd like to try this. Could you do this? Because they have been taught to be more passive during sex. And the flip side is that often men are really expected to know what to do and to get it right all the time. And that can be a lot of pressure on men. And when I'm working with heterosexual couples, often I will hear a woman say I'm afraid to tell him what I like. I don't want to hurt his feelings. I mean, everything that he does is okay. And her partner will say, I wish she would give me more feedback. I want to get it right for her. I want to make sure that she's really enjoying herself as much as I am, or actually even more than I am, because that's where I get my satisfaction, when I can see that she is really enjoying herself. So learning to communicate about this and getting education around it can be enormously helpful.
And I imagine that communication is really important as well when there's an imbalance in libido between the man and the woman, or the couple. And I think it's interesting to see what we should be doing there in terms of having that conversation with your partner about expectations around what you want, as you're highlighting, but particularly around desire and libido and whether they want more sex or less sex. Do you help couples in that space? And if you have, what advice have you got for people experiencing that?
Learning to talk about sex openly, honestly, and comfortably is one of the best things that we can do to make sure we have a really enjoyable and satisfying sex life. The most common issue that I help couples with as a couples therapist and sexologist is a mismatch in desire levels or libido. And we always need to start with having couples be able to talk about that together, to talk about the impact that it has when one partner is rejected again and again around sex, but also for the other partner to understand what it's like to feel like they're disappointing their partner, or to feel afraid that they're going to start an argument or a fight by saying no again, or feeling like their bodies let them down because they don't know the ways to turn themselves on yet. In our practice, I have other therapists that work for me as well. We always make sure we're working with the 3 key areas of a really healthy relationship. Connection, which is friendship, how they get along, spending time together outside the bedroom. Communication, how they're talking about difficult issues between them, including sex, how they're managing conflict together, and sexual intimacy. We need to make sure that all 3 of those areas are working really well together to have a strong and happy relationship. So we will always start with making sure there's connection outside the bedroom, that couples are able to communicate well, and then we look at the practical things that they can do to improve sexual intimacy between them, to make sure both partners are getting their emotional and sexual needs met together, because that then feeds back into them feeling more connected, communicating better, and having great sex. We can end up with a really positive cycle there.
What do you wish more women understood about desire, especially spontaneous versus responsive desire?
I wish that they knew that there is another myth is that desire is spontaneous and it will just arise at certain times. But we know that for many people that isn't the case. And a more helpful way to look at desire is to see it as responsive, to see it as responding to what's going on around us. A way that we can think about this is desire being like a car. So it has brakes and an accelerator. In order to get a car moving, we don't just add in the accelerator, we also have to remove the brakes. And the biggest mistake that most people make when they're trying to increase desire is adding in the accelerators, buying lingerie, buying toys, going on a date night, doing all of those things without first looking at the brakes that are getting in the way. So sexual breaks can include things like being tired and stressed, some of the things we spoke about earlier, relationship dissatisfaction, worry that the kids might work in, being uncomfortable with a changed body, negative beliefs about sex from the past, not having enjoyed sex previously. It can sometimes be the way a partner initiates sex, the way they kiss, the way they do a certain kind of touch. All of those can add up as sexual breaks. And unless we look at those first and remove them, no accelerator and no amount of accelerators is going to work to get that desire moving.
I really like that way of looking at it, acceleration and brakes, because so often there are so many brakes. And it comes back to what you were saying earlier about the connection outside of the bedroom and the communication being so important, because then you can talk about those accelerations and breaks and what's working for you and what's not working for you. Can we talk about the myth that good sex should always lead to orgasm?
Oh, yes.
How can we reframe that to change a couple's dynamic?
Oh, this is a big one, because there are so many expectations that we have around this, around, well, what makes sex successful? And when should sex end? Well, it should end when both partners have had an orgasm. And orgasms are great and wonderful. And I like to teach people about the different kinds of orgasms that they can have and how they can increase their chances of reaching orgasm. But the reality is, for sex to be enjoyable and satisfying, it doesn't require an orgasm from both or even either partner. We can engage in sex in a really loving and satisfying way just because it feels good. It doesn't have to end in a climax of any kind. And this is a really key point of Tantra in a lot of ways. It doesn't lead up to a climax and then end quickly. We would look to kind of ride those waves of pleasure, to experience new heights, to be able to relax during sex and have it be a more full experience, and often a longer experience. And many people will say to me that they're really happy if sex doesn't end in an orgasm, that's okay for them. They've still enjoyed connecting with their partner. They've still experienced a lot of pleasure, just didn't end in an orgasm for whatever reason. Maybe because they didn't want to, or it just didn't happen that day.
And they need to be okay with that, not beat themselves up about not achieving orgasm as well, right? Give us some tips on tantric sex. What are some key takeaways some ladies and others can take away?
There's some really key factors of this that make an enormous difference. And whether we call it Tantra or whether we just take them on as ways to enhance sex. Firstly, being connected to our body, being really embodied. If we're in our head, if we're thinking, if we're feeling anxious, if we're thinking about what we need to do afterwards, that's going to reduce our pleasure. It's going to reduce the connection that we feel to a partner.
So we shouldn't be lying there while we're making out with our other half thinking, forgot to put the dishes in the dishwasher and then there's washing to be done and, I've got to get my little one's uniform ready for the next morning. We don't do that.
I don't want to shoot on anyone about that, but it is going to reduce your pleasure. So sometimes that can mean, for a lot of women particularly, they have had all of those things in their mind and then they'll ask me, well, how can I just switch off? And I'm like, it isn't a switch. It's not something that can happen instantaneously. It's something, again, that you need to cultivate. So maybe that is working out a transition ritual where you can calm your nervous system down, where you can start to feel relaxed, where you can really get connected to your body, out of the mind and into the body before you engage with a partner.
Love that.
Around this.
I love that transition ritual. I've never heard that before. That's so cool.
So that could look like having a shower, leaving your partner to do the dishes, where you go and light some candles, put on some music, take a moment to yourself. Might mean you going out for a walk. It could look like you and your partner having a bath or shower together, or dancing together, around the room, something that is going to calm you down, soothe that nervous system, and that's going to allow you to be both more present with a partner and more connected with a partner, but also experience more pleasure. So that is a really key principle.
It's important. It's a really important point, because during the day, we're so often caught up in our sympathetic nervous system. Mm-hmm. We don't even consciously think that we need to activate our parasympathetic system in order to be able to really enjoy that beautiful, intimate connection with our partners.
That's right. That there's a certain level of stress that has become so normal for so many of us, we often don't even notice, but it will get in the way of certain things.
So from a biological or a psychological perspective, what's actually happening in the brain and the body during sexual connection?
Oh, there's a lot of things that are happening. There are things that are happening hormonally. There's things that are happening to blood flow. There are things that are happening often emotionally, like physiologically. There is so much that is going on there. And again, so much of this can have benefits for people. We can release a hormone like oxytocin that helps us feel closer and more connected, it makes us become more trusting, really, so we can feel closer to a partner in that way. It can also calm and soothe us a little bit so we can sleep better afterwards. Again, blood flow changes. So there's a lot that happens when we're engaging with someone.
Are there any other sex myths that we haven't covered yet that we need to be talking about?
Goodness, there's so many. I'm trying to think.
That's a bit of a worry that there's so many.
There's so many. There are so many. I was speaking on the morning show about this recently, so they're on top of my mind. I think we have covered probably the most pervasive, the most common and damaging that I see, but I feel like I encounter every day. Even recently, I was speaking to someone and we were speaking about increasing variety and finding more ways of pleasure and how they can essentially fit sex in to their really busy lives. And I was suggesting, what about taking time out in the afternoon? You're both really tired at night. You've often got things going on in the evenings. And that was like a light bulb to this client who was like, oh, in the afternoon, like we can do that. Like we don't have to wait till the end of the day. Like, oh no, you can do that whenever. Some people prefer in the morning. The afternoon seems to be a time that works really well for people when they can take that time. Well, we don't leave important things right until the end of the day when we're really tired and exhausted. And that's often the position that sex gets relegated to. We'll do it once we've got into bed, once we're really exhausted, which brings me to another myth about scheduling sex. I think there is a myth that for sex to be right, okay, really enjoyable, it has to be spontaneous and it just has to suddenly happen. And we have really clear research that shows that isn't the case. One, because it often doesn't happen spontaneously with the really busy and full lives that we have. So it can often mean if we're waiting for spontaneous sex, we're not having sex at all, or we're not having sex very often. But we also have research that shows that scheduled sex can be just as satisfying and exciting as sex that happens spontaneously.
And I guess it's the way that you set up the scheduled sex.
That's right.
If you were to also incorporate that transition approach that you spoke of earlier, what are those? Is that the sort of thing that people could do to make it feel like it's not so scheduled?
Well, exactly. And
even though it is.
In the same way that we might go on any other date. We don't say, oh, well, going on a date didn't happen spontaneously. No, some of the best dates happen when we plan for it ahead of time. We think about what we might want to do. So that might mean buying some nice massage oil, getting a nice candle. It might mean buying a special toy for the occasion. And we get dressed up for dates. We prepare for them. And that can add to both the transition, the calming, but also the excitement of, I'm going to do this for my partner. We're leaving that regular life behind and we're going to this space that we can enjoy together. We can have, adult playtime together, which is what sex is, this form of play that can be so enjoyable and so fun.
Many women in midlife report feeling disconnected from their bodies as a result of going through perimenopause, menopause. When you're experiencing night sweats, hot flashes, you're not necessarily feeling sexy, right?
That's right.
What's your advice for women wanting to reignite that confidence and pleasure? What can they do?
Look, this is a really tricky one. Often our whole lives we have been taught that our bodies are wrong and not okay, and that our bodies are supposed to fit into a society that was designed largely by and for men, and that leaves us with a certain wrongness within ourselves. It is okay for desire to fluctuate. It is okay for the way you are feeling within yourself and about yourself to fluctuate and change. there may be different ways that you can be grateful for your body or experience pleasure in your body at those times. There might be things that we need to add in as well. It's often really interesting that taking Viagra for men is often seen as normal, yes, understandable, yeah. And yet, a kind of similar equivalent for women might be using a lubricant because we don't lubricate in the way we used to, or using certain topical creams, and we can end up feeling like there's something wrong with us for that. So we might need to look at different ways that we can connect to our body and different ways that we can experience pleasure with those changes. But knowing that it's still possible, knowing that your body actually hasn't let you down. It's actually probably society that has let you down by having you think that your body should look, feel, be a certain way that fits into culture, I think is important as well.
Yeah, spot on. And I'm thinking that communication is going to be really critical with their partner at this time, because if they're experiencing discomfort during sex, dry vagina, these are the type of symptoms some ladies can feel when they're going through these transitions, they might feel embarrassed or a little bit awkward about having that type of conversation, as you said, because we've been so conditioned to have certain expectations around our body. How would you suggest that somebody would broach that conversation with their partner about this?
It's a good question, and I want to take a little bit of a step back from that, because when we have learned tools for really good, clear, intimate communication, it doesn't so matter what the topic is. When a couple has a culture of sharing things gently with each other, with really being able to listen to each other, they'll be able to bring up any topic with ease. One of the things that I see happen for women in perimenopause and menopause is that, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, Azra, to see if this is something that you have noticed as well. It's a conversation I've had with a lot of professionals. There are really real changes that happen to women's bodies at this time, really real changes that happen to their mood and their emotions, along with the physical changes. And there seems to be a phenomena that I've noticed that also women are just done at this point. That all of the stuff they've been able to put to the side and deal with and, and do this extra labor around, they just are no longer interested in doing that. And so a lot of the time I will hear couples come in and say, yeah, menopause is really the problem. It's really changed our relationship. And I'm wondering, well, did it? Or is it just that she does not have the capacity for this shit anymore, and that is coming out and impacting the relationship?
I think, look, it's really interesting. And yes, I'm seeing a lot of that in women in midlife, 100%. And it's interesting because I think that's twofold. I think there are some hormonal impacts there, because obviously we're not in that nurturing mode anymore. We've gone through, we've got
done enough of that.
Depleted, we're losing our progesterone, and we're totally over having to be nurturing everyone else. And I see a lot of midlife women very much focusing on themselves and just really wanting to put themselves first. And it really concerns me that we're having to wait until midlife to actually do that. And I keep saying to ladies, don't wait until you get to my age to put yourself first. Make sure that you are putting yourself first and your health and wellness first, because if you're not well, then you can't be there for your family anyway if you become unwell.
Yes.
But yes, some of the recent conversations that I've had have been really interesting, where I've had one lady that said to me, I think that when we get to this age, we should all just live with each other and we shouldn't live with men anymore, because I'm just done with having
I know women younger who are also saying this.
Interesting. And then I've had other women say, you know what? I don't want to have sex with men anymore. I actually want to experience having sex with women instead, because I feel like they understand me better. And I think it's that time that I start to put myself first. Have you seen that as well?
I have seen this as well. And again, actually from women of all ages, I think there is a shift out there. There is a shift. I am seeing women, a lot of women, there's a kind of trope on social media that, if sexuality was really a choice, there would be a lot more lesbians in the world. So, yeah, I do see this shift in women in general. And especially in change of life, like later in life now, women are, you're right, they're done with the caregiving, and it does have an impact. So to come back to your question, how do women have a conversation about it? There are really specific ways that, they could raise the issue, but I would first encourage them to look at, is it one issue or is this part of a bigger picture that's been going on, and to perhaps get a bit clear within themselves about that.
Yeah. When it comes to this time in our life when we are going through these transitions, and you've spoken about how we're starting to see women really be over it, really wanting to kind of experience something different. Where do self-pleasure and self-connection practices come into play there to help women rediscover what feels good for them?
I feel like self-pleasure is so helpful at any point in our lives. All the way through our lives, there can be an idea that once we're in a relationship, that part of ourselves, that energy is only for the person that we're in relationship with. And we should only express it when we're with them. But there are so many benefits to self-pleasure, to us learning what we like, to us pleasuring ourselves. And where I have women start with this, a lot of women haven't explored this for themselves or might have a little bit. I always have women start with mindful touch all over their body. What is it for you to just give mindful, gentle, loving touch to your whole body, to discover more sensitive places on your body, to be able to touch yourself gently, to be able to find where feels good, and then to take that kind of exploration to vulva touch, to genital touch. And yes, again, using lubricant, maybe trying different lubricants that are designed for whatever stage of life or any particular challenges you might be having, to use that and to explore without goals or expectations, but to get to know your own body, to give just pleasure to your own body. And, if someone is wanting to, adding in toys that can help, especially as we lose some sensitivity, toys can also help with that. They can also feel like a little bit too much for someone. So there's no right and wrong, but exploration can be enormously helpful.
Because you're right. I think it's not all about the genitals. We have erogenous zones on other parts of our body that can really pump things up a little bit, right?
Yes, we do.
So what are some of those other erogenous zones that people could explore specifically?
I love getting people to explore this for themselves or with a partner. So there's a really beautiful exercise that I have couples do, and it's one that couples often come back to over and over again. It's called body mapping, and it's where they gently explore each other's body, trying different kinds of touch in different places, because we can all have these kind of secret spots, if you like, that, there's the very obvious, there's the genitals, there's the nipples, there's the lips. For some people, it's ears. For some people, it's toes. There can be belly buttons. All the soft spaces, we sometimes call them the yin side. So if you look at like the inside of the wrist is softer than the outside. The inside of the elbow is softer. Behind the knees are softer than the front of the knees. Those really soft places can feel really, really sensitive when you're relaxed and using the right kind of touch on them. So I really encourage people to start to explore this for themselves, to discover where are the secret spots for me or for my partner.
We've been talking a lot about sex and intimacy. Let's focus a little bit more on relationships. And in your experience, how do healthy relationships contribute to overall well-being and even longevity?
Relationships are really, and I go beyond an intimate partnership when I say this. Healthy relationships really are one of the key factors in overall health, well-being, and longevity. We have so many studies around this. Our ability to form and keep healthy relationships impacts, again, every measurable area of our health and well-being. And it is often a cycle that gets passed down. If we don't get set up well in childhood for really healthy, happy relationships, we are going to struggle later on. But again, we can learn this. by learning new skills, by looking at ourselves, by cultivating healthy, happy relationships. Healthy, happy relationships change our physical experience of pain. They change the way the body interacts with pain. We have studies where women were placed in MRI machines and told that they might experience a mild electric shock. And the area of their brain associated with fear and pain lit up for those women unless they were holding their partner's hand. And when they were holding their partner's hand, that brain activity was significantly reduced. They didn't feel the same amount of stress. Now, if they actually reported being satisfied in their relationships, that was reduced even further. We have studies that show when people are placed at the bottom of a hill wearing a backpack, when they have a supportive friend or other beside them, they will perceive the hill as less steep as when they're alone. So our healthy relationships literally impact the way that we perceive the world, how challenging, how painful we see the world, the kind of fear that we have around it. Now, there are some gender differences around this. We know that in heterosexual relationships, men will tend to have more benefits than women. Men who have long-term relationships will live much longer than men who don't. Women don't have those same benefits in intimate partnership, but relationships overall will help all of us.
So what happens to our nervous system or our hormones when we're feeling loved, connected, and safe in our relationship?
Well, our nervous system is soothed. Our nervous system becomes soothed. We don't have the same levels of stress. We do feel like we can take on life with more ease. We are less likely to have health challenges. Our immune system, our immune function is improved when we've got healthy and happy relationships around us. When a couple is fighting, we can measure their immune function and we can see the impacts, especially when certain styles of communication, like contempt, where couples are attacking each other, is used. We see a decrease in immune function. We see an increase in physical health outcomes in those people. And this is not as much my area of expertise, but we know that stress also impacts hormones. It impacts our body's ability to regulate in all of the ways that it needs to. So whenever we're adding stress and when we're taking away support, so adding stress from relationships and taking away the support of healthy relationships all around, that's going to have significant impacts on all of the ways that the body regulates its different systems, and then the outcomes in terms of health, well-being, mental health, and also our productivity.
Yeah. What's next for you, Isiah? Any projects, courses, or books that you're excited about? What's happening in your world?
I have some really exciting things happening in my world. I have at the moment a new podcast out called Our Patients Are Having Sex. This is conversations with other professionals, gynecologists, dietitians, neuroscientists, couples therapists about the sexual and relational challenges that we see our clients facing and what they can do, what clinicians can do to support their clients, but also, there's advice for anyone wanting to improve their sex life and relationship. Next year, we are also in a really exciting stage of planning weekends away for couples, group weekends away. So right now, myself and my team offer regular therapy, couples therapy and sexology, where you see us via telehealth regularly. Next year, what we'll be adding into these offerings is weekends away, where couples will come in on a Friday night. There will be sort of segments from me where I'm sharing information, where I'm giving couples exercises and activities to do to take back to their room later that night. There's fun adventures that they get to have and fun activities that they get to do during the day. There's time for them to just relax together. We want this to be a fun and enjoyable weekend away for couples, where they also get some tools in there to help their relationship as well. So the first one is At the end of February, it will be on the Gold Coast. We have a few more planned across the country next year as well, focusing on the different key areas of a healthy relationship.
And where can listeners find your work if they want to deepen their understanding of intimacy and connection?
There are a lot of resources available on my website, but often it's easiest to jump on to my Instagram. It's Isiah McKimmie.sexologist. There's a lot that we share on there that'll take you to all of my other pages as well, including the podcast page, so you can see everything that I have on offer.
Fabulous. And we'll pop all of those details in the show notes as well. And finally, what does it mean to you to live well longer? I ask all of my guests this question, so curious to hear what your thoughts are on what it means to live well longer.
Live well longer? Oh, I like that. I like that distinction between just living longer. Yeah. For me, living well longer is really doing all of the things that nourish me and light me up, whether that's going out into nature and having downtime there, or being able to really enjoy the time that I have with the people I love and feel like I have the energy for doing that.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time
Azra.
today, Isiah. You've really lifted the lid on lots of things for people, I'm sure, and I look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts about our chat today. No doubt we'll be getting lots of questions, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to learn more about biohacking, go ahead and sign up on my website at www.biohack-her.com to get a free copy of my 5 top biohacks to get you kick-started. While you're there, you can also check out my blog page for more tips on biohacking. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to talk to in particular, and we'll endeavour to get them on the podcast. Until next time, remember to live well longer.